Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio is widely known as the roller coaster capital of the world. They have 17 coasters in which I have ridden 13 of them, and today I wanted to count down my top 10 favorite coasters at the park. Now I've been here twice, my first trip coming in 2017 and my second trip being in 2018. Now I have actually made a top 10 at Cedar Point about a year and a half ago, but that list is very outdated and I've changed around a lot of the spots, so today I'll be bringing you my updated list. But with those things out of the way, here's my top 10 favorite coasters at Cedar Point. Alright, so coming in at number 10 is Wicked Twister. Now this was my first and currently only INTAMIN impulse coaster, and this ride is a lot of fun. It's pretty intense, the launches are really fun, you get some great positives coming up those spikes and leveling out from them. The twists are fun and give good laterals. It's really fun being in the back row and being on that backward spike, looking down at the ground from that high up is just a really fun experience. I like that's right next to the beach. This ride's not very popular and it's kind of irrelevant in the park, but it's still a fun ride, and it also does have a pretty significant rattle, which does take away a little bit, but honestly isn't a huge deal. But it's still a fun ride, and I'd say it's a good number 10 coaster at the park. Alright, so coming in at number 9 is going to be ROUGAROU. Now this ride originally opened up in 1996 as Mantis, as the world's tallest, fastest, longest stand-up coaster. However, in 2015 it was converted into a floorless coaster, and this was the first of these conversions. And it's a decent ride. In 2017 I got some rides towards the back and it was really rough. But still pretty intense, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. But in 2018 I got a middle towards the front row ride. It is really smooth. It's got a pretty good drop, great inversions, really intense. It's got a decently long ride. It's a really solid ride, and I like how part of it goes over the water. I wish it did have some of those effects it had on opening day. But it's still a good ride. I like the color scheme. The second half is kind of weird with all those turns, but they are still pretty intense. But overall, it's a really fun ride. It's definitely better than the other floorless conversion I've ridden, Firebird. So yeah, there's ROUGAROU at number 9. Alright, so next up at number 8 is Gemini, the aerodynamics racing hybrid coaster. Now there are very few of these aerodynamics hybrid coasters. The only other one I can think of is Excalibur at Valley Fair. It's basically just like a sized up mine train, I guess. And this ride's really fun. The racing aspect is great. And the turnarounds, like some are smaller and wider than others, so you're always like right next to the other train, which is just really fun. This ride has some good airtime moments, has lots of turnarounds. It has a pretty fun helix at the end. It was actually the tallest coaster in the world when it opened back in 1978. Overall, it's a really solid, I'd say intermediate, moderate thrill coaster. Definitely more than like Blue Streak, but less than some of the others, like I guess ROUGAROU or the other thrill coasters in the park. So yeah, it's a really fun aerodynamics racing coaster, and it's a really solid coaster. It runs right up along the part of the midway, and it's just really fun. So there you have Gemini at number 8. And so next up at number 7 is Downhill Adrenaline's favorite coaster, Blue Streak. Now this coaster opened up back in 1964. It's the oldest operating coaster in the park. It's a classic out and back PTC wooden coaster. It's definitely a smaller ride. It's more, I'd say, of a family coaster, but it's still pretty fun. I like how it runs right along the road. It has a great pops of airtime. Some good laterals on the turnaround. It's pretty smooth if you sit on a non-wheel seat, but it is kind of rough if you do sit on a wheel seat. I like how this ride's blue. I think that's pretty unique. There are not many blue wooden coasters, and it's just a really fun ride. I'd say it's more of a good sort of family coaster. It's not super thrilling or crazy, but it's just a really, really fun ride. Alright, so coming in at number 6 is going to be Millennium Force. Now I just recently did a full review on this coaster, so make sure to go check that out. If you want me to go more or if you want to see more in-depth thoughts on Millie, but just to sum things up, this ride is really fun. It's got a great drop, some really fun overbank turns, some good airtime moments. It's a really long ride, keeps a great pace throughout the whole layout. It really doesn't lose its speed. It's got a great setting. Doesn't really have any theming, but it's not the end of the world. and it also gives an amazing night ride. Even though the bugs are kind of annoying, that just adds to the overall experience and fun of a night ride on Millennium Force. And it's just a really, really great coaster. It doesn't have the best layout out there, but it's just a really, really great ride. And for being the first Giga, it's definitely still a very fun coaster. Alright, so now we're getting into the great stuff. So starting off the top 5 is going to be Raptor, the B&M inverted coaster. And this ride is super iconic. It opened up back in 1994 as the, I'm pretty sure it's the tallest and fastest and longest invert when it opened. It's also the first to have a Cobra roll, so it's pretty record-breaking for its time, typical in Cedar Point fashion. And this ride's awesome. It has a great first drop, which is actually a pretty unique type of drop. It has some great whippy, compact, tight inversions, which are really forceful. It has a great Cobra roll, vertical loop. It has an awesome zero G-roll, and those two corkscrews are great. It even has some little airtime pop later in the ride, and you get some good airtime on that drop. That final helix is really, really intense. It's just a long ride. It's smooth. It's super iconic. I love the color scheme. It's loud. It runs right up along the midway. It's the first coaster you pass by when you come into the park. And it's just a great invert. It's my third favorite one behind Afterburn and Montu. And it's definitely just a really good ride and my favorite B&M out the park. Alright, so number 4 is a pretty controversial one. This is Magnum XL 200. Now, this used to be a pretty hated on ride by a lot of enthusiasts, but I think a lot of people have started liking it more. For some people still aren't a huge fan of it. But I love this coaster. It is just it's a classic ride. I mean, it was the world's first hyper coaster. It really started the coaster wars. It just has a great drop. The first hill gives good floater. The turnaround's pretty intense. Those bunny hills give insane ejector. It's painful. It's just crazy strong airtime. Each one gets better and better. I like the tunnels, like how it's right next to the beach and the water park. It's got a great setting, great view at the top. That's a pretty long ride. Definitely don't staple yourself because it'll hurt a lot. But if you give yourself some room, it won't be as bad. I haven't done the magic seat on this ride, which I'm pretty sure is first Carbo 3 from what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, this ride is just incredible. You know, I could see why some people aren't a huge fan of it. It is a bit rough, but it just gives that out of control feel to me. It gives it some character. And after all, we wouldn't have a bunch of the extreme coasters we have today if it weren't for Magnum. It really kicked off that whole coaster world. But yeah, Magnum's just a great ride, and it's one of my favorite coasters. Alright, so number 3 is going to be Top Thrill Dragster. Now, this ride is only 17 seconds long, but it kicks butt. This was the first 400-foot coaster in the world, the first strata coaster, and it is just insane. That launch is definitely my favorite launch I've experienced. It's extremely intense, really smooth. Unlike King Ka's launch, the acceleration feels very smooth and fluent, while King Ka's kind of not very smooth. But the launch is just super intense. It's so fast. I mean, you're just flying. You know, you get some great intensity coming up and leveling off from that top hat, and you get some great laterals on the twist up and on the drop, and you get some good airtime going over the top and going through that drop. You get some cool ejector. The drop gets some crazy laterals and airtime. It's an awesome feeling. It's short. It's pretty much just, you know, that launch and top, and then you're done. But it is definitely worth it. Even if it's an hour wait, I'd say go for it. It's worth it. Especially a night ride on this is crazy. I haven't done front row, but just any row is amazing. It's definitely better than King Ka for, you know, the setting, the lap bars. It's just a smoother ride. It doesn't have that trim at the top, so you get better airtime going over the top. And it's just an awesome ride, and it's probably the best 17 seconds you'll ever experience. It's just crazy. Alright, so number 2 is going to be Maverick, and I know a lot of people will say this is the best in the park, but for me, this is definitely not quite the best in the park, but it is just an amazing ride. It's an INTAMIN BLITZ coaster. It was the first one, opened up back in 2007. It's a pretty short ride, only 105 feet tall, but it is insane. It has 2 launches, the first of which acts like a lift hill, and the second one is a 70-mile-per-hour launch inside a tunnel. It's really cool. It's got great intense banking turns, rapid-fire bank turns. Got good airtime moments. Inversions are fun. It's got some crazy stangle dives. It even goes over water, which is awesome. It has some cool water effects. The restraints are great. I like how it's the soft ones. I heard some people liked it more with the hard restraints. It was more just crazy and kind of painful, but I definitely like these soft restraints. I don't know if I'd like the more crazy experience, but it's a long ride too. It's smooth. It's got good themings, like when you're turning. It has those cool canyons, and like rock work and stuff, and of course the water effects, and there's some effects inside the tunnel. It's just a really good ride. It's a very well-rounded ride. I mean, it's not my favorite coaster, and I do think it's kind of overrated, but it's just really fun. Definitely the second best ride in the park. All right, so coming in at number 1 is going to be Steel Vengeance. Now, this is regarded by many as the best coaster in the world. It definitely was a lot more back when it opened in spring of 2018, and it's since fallen off that spot for most people, especially for me. This was actually my favorite coaster for a while when I first rode it. However, I've since realized I since started to prefer some other coasters that I've ridden, but this ride is still awesome. This is the Hyper Hybrid RMC conversion of the old Mean Streak wooden coaster, and this thing is just awesome. It is a crazy long ride. It has tons of airtime, even though most of it isn't super strong, but does have some great moments, like that awesome 90-degree vertical drop. 200 feet. This is just an amazing drop. It's got that awesome top hat and Outer Bank turn, and the step up into the mid-course is crazy. That's definitely my favorite part. Some crazy strong ejector. It's got some good pops throughout. It's got some great sideways airtime moments, even a wave turn later in the ride. The choppers are awesome. I love diving in and out of the structure in the second half. The inversions are great and whippy. I definitely prefer the first half to the second half, and I think that's because the mid-course brake run seemed like it was running pretty hard on when I rode it. The second half was a bit weaker, but it's still great, but I do prefer the first half, and it's just a super fun ride. It's just really re-rideable. You could just marathon it. You could lap it over and over again, which is what I did. I actually got about 20 rides on this thing over my trip, and it's just amazing. It's definitely currently my favorite RMC. However, that is probably soon changing, because I will be riding Lightning Rod in just under 2 weeks. I'm super excited for that, but Steel Vengeance is still an awesome coaster. Definitely the best coaster at Cedar Point, even if it is a bit overrated, not quite the best coaster in the world. Alright, so there you have it, my top 10 coasters at Cedar Point. Now, Cedar Point just has an amazing lineup of coasters. They have great quantity and quality and some good variety. I mean, they have a Hyper Hybrid coaster, they have a Blitz coaster, a Strata coaster, a Giga coaster, they have an inverted coaster, a Hyper coaster. They just have so many different types of roller coasters, and it's just an amazing lineup. It's an amazing park overall. It is my second favorite park behind Busch Gardens Tampa. Definitely my favorite amusement park, and I just love Cedar Point. So there's my top 10 coasters at Cedar Point. What did you guys think of my list, and what are your top 10 coasters at this amazing park? Make sure to leave all those thoughts down in the comment section below, and make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe for more coaster content coming soon, and I will see you guys later. Bye.